wrong in front of that one every time.
That one's going big on the entrance.
Okay, thank you for coming and welcome. It's been a bit of a scramble, we're kind of a bit unorganized. I don't know yet if you know, the rest of them all know that we have COVID positivity in our building. So it started with routine testing, a staff member tested positive, which then by Department of Health guidelines today says we needed to test all of our residents regardless of vaccination status, which we did, and found to have one positive resident, number one. So here we go. Sarah is gonna talk about it and go over kind of a refresh on PPE and, you know, what we should and shouldn't be doing in that room. But before we do that, I think we'll touch on some of the, we kind of did a little curveball agenda here, and not gonna go over some of the things that we thought we would go over, but just gonna go over. You guys can stop me, you can chime in, you can add, you can whatever. This is real informal. One thing, I'm just gonna go down my list as I think of things, and I have an agenda on my computer. It's a Word document, I just keep adding and adding, so there's no rhyme or reason to how this is arranged, but I'm just gonna go through the stuff that I've collected over time. Attendance, you are here or you have found your own replacement. Do not call me, text me, or leave a voicemail on my personal cell phone with information about absences. There are many hours I'm away from my cell phone. It doesn't seem like that, because as many of you may see me here a good bit of the time, I have my cell phone, but there are many hours I don't have my cell phone. And I have had messages left on my phone, text messages saying, I can't make it, or, you know, whatever. And at 4 o'clock, I'm blindsided with someone who's supposed to be here at 4, because Kim has come to me and said, is so-and-so working today? And I'm like, I think so, and then pick up my phone and so-and-so had left me a message. That's not okay. Any report of absence has to be done verbally, so call the facility, ask for me, talk to me about it, after you've tried to find your own replacement, because that is our policy. So just an update, and then, as we all know, your weekends are your weekends. You cannot request those off. You can make arrangements amongst yourselves to take time off on your weekend, trading or whatever, but you cannot request those off. And one final message about attendance: weather-related issues are not an excuse for absence. Most office weather is, what?
Nothing.
She's thinking out loud again.
Most often weather is predicted well ahead of time, and we all get a warning, so, you know, make sure you have arrangements to be in town. You can stay at the facility, whatever it needs to be. You have to be here on your shift to work. Next, we're gonna talk about our tasks. We're a month in, a little over a month in, and woo-hoo, I'm raising up because you guys are phenomenal. All of our anxiety about our task and going electronic, that we all drug our feet on, myself included, you know, just jumping that hurdle and finding our way to the other side is huge, but we did it. You all did a great job. You're all doing a great job. I just like to get a feel for pros and cons. You know, are there things you think we need to adjust in our daily routine, or has it just been a matter of us adjusting to the system, and now we found our groove? Thoughts?
Is there a way to simplify the screening, the COVID screening? Can that be on one view, or can that not be on one
It cannot.
click?
It would be really nice. There can only be 5 symptom questions on each set. So we have 10 questions.
Right.
And then I asked myself this too, why can't we put in every one of the vital signs into, you know, one screen?
Because
But
if you're pulling it up.
if you're
Pulse.
pulling reports, trying to research just an oximetry reading, and it's all clustered in with 4 other readings, a pulse, a temp, a weight, you can't focus on just getting an oximetry reading. So that is the reason it's broken apart like that, is for reporting purposes. I agree, it is redundant, you sit there and you click and you click and you click. While we're talking about that though, I'm going to focus on the importance of asking those residents those questions, because now that we're live in the building, early detection and they're reporting any change now. And Sarah, did you have this on your list to talk about?
I can touch on that if you want, or it's up to you.
Yeah, go ahead, now that we're talking about it, I mean, just,
So, example on, a lot of our residents already have some of the, say, quote unquote, COVID symptoms. So the most important thing is we're looking for new things, not the chronic cough, not the chronic shortness of breath. You're looking for a change, new shortness of breath, new cough, new situations. So, number one, is not a, could be a somewhat a surprise, that he's positive. There's a couple of, scenarios that are, different with him. He has had some ongoing headaches, he's had some, different, things that could have indicated COVID possibly. However, it's not, none of his symptoms were new. He's had some medication changes that have indicated headaches. His diarrhea is not new. So for us to have swabbed him earlier, I would have never crossed my mind. However, with the employee being positive, having an encounter with him a little bit potentially longer than 15 minutes, didn't surprise us after he then showed up positive. She did not, the employee that was positive did have her mask and goggles on. So, there wasn't a breach in PPE. However, number one, also we have to remember, has been in and out of the clinic 100 times. He's unfortunately been having to go out of the building quite often too, as opposed to the rest of the residents also. That's again why I try very hard to not have our residents leave if they don't have to, especially when we're in such a high transmission, community transmission, when we're at such a high, whatever. Oh, yes, you in the front row.
What level are we at now? Are we still at a high level in Murray County?
So interesting, I just checked before, we came in, so, we were at high, like last week, we're at substantial, which is orange. So it's still elevated, but it's going down. So we're at orange right now, which is better. So as that goes down too, obviously as that's getting better, we're hoping to be able to get rid of the goggles, if that's an option. Obviously right now, we can't, but as things get better, we're hoping to be able to get rid of goggles and, maybe as the things continue to progressively get better, get rid of testing for those that are unvaccinated and, little things like that as we move towards potentially get better. Around us, however, we're seeing some better colors, so blue, yellow, so it's just always Murray County, unfortunately. But again, around us is getting a prettier color, so it's getting better. So, anyway, again, when you're asking the symptoms, you're wanting to know new, different, things like that. It's not, because most of them have, chronic,
Right.
runny nose. I mean, it's not, it's more, pay attention to, the newer things, not these chronic things. So, I think majority of you are answering the questions correctly, that they're all pretty well knows. With number one too, I'm pretty sure a lot of you have been putting no, he's been answering them no because they are new to him.
Right.
So it's been fine, and I would have not tested him had he not had, he probably wouldn't have if we not had the positivity. So, and just to touch on, number one, just because I know, he's very anxious right now, with having COVID. He's very scared. I'll just put it that way. So if you, get called in there, whatever, he's nervous, just to put it that way. I've talked to him a couple of times. I've actually just told him just to put his call light on, just if he needs to talk a little bit, because, a person like him, I think he knows that it's, it could be awful for him. Or like I told him too, I'm like, you may just sail right through this and not even know a darn thing happened. So,
Not that we could ever tell him this, but I think if we all think back to when we first had positivity, not once but twice, number 11 was the victim, and he was
That's
the
a
one,
miracle. Yeah.
he was the one we talked about and said if he ever gets it,
Mhm.
he will not survive it. And he
And
had
look
two
at him.
incidents of positivity, and so, I mean, and we could never say that to John,
you know, I
obviously.
just tell him though, cause sometimes people just don't, when they first come in and, they don't use their call light. They think, oh, it'll get better, you know, it's fine, you know, I'm okay, and then they are so sick, and it's just like, you know, we would rather catch it early, so it's just one of those things where anything is different, just put your light on. It might seem stupid to you, but to us, if we can listen and I can catch something early and maybe prevent something, I don't know. But if anything feels goofy, I mean, who knows your body better than you? You. So just put your call light on, and you know, if it's a temperature or something, something's different. He has everything put into place really already. What can we do more? Maybe just send the ER, they send it back, okay, we played that game. But it is what it is. So I just want him to know that use your call light, we're here. Cause his door unfortunately has to stay shut because he uses the Trilogy, he uses oxygen, and he uses those things where it's considered to be an aerosolic procedure type stuff, which we just have to keep the door shut, and so I think that makes him also nervous too, that he just feels a little more obviously isolated, so just know that if he puts his light on, it might just be he just needs a little TLC.
Sarah, how long does he have to be in isolation? Is it just the 5 days then?
You know, it's a very good question, I haven't even had a chance to look into that, only because it might be, there's a difference, heaven forbid, between somebody, so he's fully vaccinated, where if you got your 2 shots plus the booster, you're considered to be up to date. And then there's us that are unvaccinated, so there's 3 different people.
And he has not had his booster.
Correct, so he's considered fully vaccinated, and if you have your booster, you're up to date. So I think it depends on where you're at in the little scheme of things.
No, I can't go get my booster now, being that I've been contaminated, right, or been in,
Always contaminated.
Yes, you can.
you can?
You're fine
If
as long
you-
as you aren't currently ill,
Oh, okay,
yeah.
I didn't know if exposure was in there or not.
No. So I do believe it, and it also will depend on his symptoms. So say the Department of Health would say they stay in there at least, say, 5 days. It will also depend on if he's still symptomatic also.
How do we know if he's symptomatic, if he's like, he's
Right.
always
And
got the cough
Right, and
and,
in his situation be very, very difficult. I think unfortunately we will never know. Because again, the unfortunate part with him is he was exposed. And that's how we caught it. Now, he has a headache, has been having headaches on and off, he has diarrhea on and off, he has the cough on and off. So, like, basically, I think we just wanna make sure that the diarrhea hasn't worsened, his headaches haven't worsened, his current status hasn't worsened. So if his symptoms, nothing has worsened, when his quarantine is up, basically he can come off. Now, if by chance things have worsened, obviously we know something still isn't, whether it's just pneumonia or what, he couldn't come off precautions, or the transmission-based precautions. So, that
and
would
he
be.
did state this morning his stomach feels better, he thinks it was the orange juice.
Oh, okay. Well,
Since he hasn't been drinking orange juice, his stomach has felt better.
He
Good.
said stomach and bowels. Yeah.
So yeah, I mean, like I said, we have some tough cases in here where we could swab them every day then, really, you know what I mean, for COVID, but you have to be kind of choosy based on
And
symptoms.
new change
Right.
in your
Or if you
cough.
hear something different, and maybe, sometimes they don't recognize that it's new,
Right.
but it's new to you. Like, I didn't hear that before, And you guys are very good about that, like, they sound different. He sounds different today, you know what I mean?
Mhm.
So, and you're good about reporting it, you tell us all the time, you tell me a lot, he sounds different today, you know? So, just be on the lookout for those kinds of things, especially now, since it's here. So,
We're gonna go back to COVID later, but, so let's back up to our task conversation. So again, are there any other frustrations? Are you finding your way? Are your groove is here to stay? You know what you're doing? Not that I can be any help if you don't know what you're doing, but you know.
don't get to watch a movie.
I'm just gonna, I got it up here, and I'm just gonna kind of touch on a few things. Please remember, our task is permanent documentation, so everything you put in there can be reviewed by either us, or if, you know, if it became a part of an investigation or anything, everything you put in there is permanent documentation. So keep everything professional. I love the messaging feature. The messaging feature is not there to criticize or to throw someone under the bus. It's simply to get communication across about the facility or about a resident or about, you know, it's not about bashing each other by any means. Please don't do that. If you got complaints, come to me. Don't make it part of this permanent documentation. So yeah, keep it professional. Be sure you are giving attention to messages in the lower right corner. So this is, if you have any new messages, I don't know if y'all know, but they're gonna show up down there. So you just click on those, on that dangling little number down there, and that'll bring up all your messages. And once you go through them, please click the mark as read, so that, you know, you don't have to necessarily look at those again. They won't, once you click mark as read, it'll go down to 4, and then when you click mark as read on the next one, it'll go down to 3, etc. So that is kind of the messaging feature. So when you first log in today, or any day, you're brought to this login report. And this is important information as well. You know, anything campus memos, you should always be reading through all of this login information every day before you start your work. Because this is a way for internal communication to, you know, kind of, what our hope is that eventually we'll go away from our communication book entirely, so it becomes extremely important that you pay attention to your login reports and everything that's listed there. It will, you know, oh yeah, deeply in positivity today, oh yeah, good. For you guys, does it list the referrals and appointments for the day too? It
Not in
doesn't?
the login.
Not in the login.
Okay,
That's when we put on today, when we go up to today.
It's the very
so that's
first
the
thing.
login report, so yeah, then on your today screen, it's also full of a lot of really valuable information. Whenever there's a change in a resident, Sarah or myself or Brooklyn go into any component of their RTASK record and make that change. And many of those changes will trigger a new care plan item. And we are the caregiver, so it's our responsibility to know any changes in their care plan. So don't ignore these things that are appearing on your today screen. Like here, Nola Amundsen has a care plan review due. So then you just have to click somewhere in between those two gray lines, these two gray lines, and it'll bring up, this is Ronnie, but, and then it will show you in there anything that is new. So that change that one of us might have made will come up as new. Now, please remember that as we are entering people that have been here for 3, 5, 7 years, whatever, our task doesn't know that they've been here for 3, 5, 7 years, so everything's new to our tasks. But going forward, once you've acknowledged this care plan on Ronnie, and then say tomorrow, Ronnie has another change and somebody makes that change in the system, then tomorrow you'll be flagged again to review Ronnie's care plan. And then it should only show the blue new button on the change that was made, not the whole care plan. Make sense? So once you've reviewed all of those news, at the very bottom of each of these care plan reviews is a box that you have to click that you have acknowledged that, and then you have to actually then click on this acknowledge button to get it off of your today's screen. So all of those care plans should be reviewed and acknowledged. Policies are another thing that we're gonna work to push out. And policies are gonna be nice at the end of the day because, just say you're gonna do a blood glucose check on somebody and you don't do it every day, or it's been several months since you've done it. And the service is listed here as a blood sugar check. So the policy then would be linked right on the service. You can just click on the policy and it'll explain the whole this isn't what that, this is acknowledging the new policy, but, here you can just click, the blue link is to the actual policy, and again, this isn't the blood sugar one, but, and it shows up down there in the corner, down here, opening. I got a really old, slow computer here, but anyway, it'll bring up the policy and you can review the steps of doing that blood glucose, and then you can document it as such. Any questions on that? So those policies need to be reviewed. Oh, what, how do you read out of this now, Sarah? I don't see. Anyway. So policy reviews, you're gonna have to, anything that's on this today's screen, please, review and acknowledge.
And just on the care plans too, you know, we do obviously the best that we can with, when we review and go through them with the residents and make sure, if you see something that's not right, I know Sandy has been good about, pointing out a few things, or it's been a month and, cause they really only let us, without making, our test is kinda weird, so we can go in and adjust, I could make a change, but it won't show up on the care plan right away, long story, but, so it won't show up on the care plan until I actually go in and do the 90-day assessment, but I can go in and change it, but you won't see it on the care plan until I actually see them in 90 days again. It's kind of a weird thing. But anyway, if you see something, just make sure you let us know if something's changing with them in between time, or if I didn't enter something right, you're doing more, doing less, or, you know, just let us know so we can either, if we need to make an adjustment, or actually re-see them and do a whole new assessment, just based on your findings with them. You know, you do more hands-on than we do, so just so we make sure what is actually being done is matching that care plan, if that, you know what I mean?
That also applies to the services. Obviously, when we put in, everything that needed to be documented, reported, chores, whatever, it was a process, and I'm not gonna lie, it was kind of a grueling process. I spent a lot of hours on my computer at home late at night putting in services, and, Jill, don't throw me under the bus here, but.
Now's your time to shine, Jill.
I'm ready to back up and go forward.
I'm still working on getting everything in right, so I'm not offended when you come to me and say, I do her laundry on such and such a day, or I clean, or I, you know, whatever, just let me know and I can always change things, cause they're not all right, I'll be the first to say it. On our today's screen, we all know how to get to our today's screen and decide who we are for the day. Our to-do list and our provider, who we are, so just say I'm working on the med card, I'm the morning RA1, and then all my stuff will come up. But there's nothing wrong with going into, if I got 5-10 minutes going into RA2 and doing some RA2 work, or some dietary 1 work, or, I mean, we're all here together, we're all here for a common cause and helping each other out, great. Any questions on reporting at all? Getting reports off the system, or? Temperatures, food temperatures, everybody okay entering those? That step-by-step guide is okay? So anything else about our tasks that we wanna talk about, otherwise we're gonna move on. So next we're gonna talk about some kitchen things. Tempting foods, So I audit the food temps that are put in, and, I've seen some cold food items entered into the system at 55 degrees. I've seen some hot food items entered into the system at 80 degrees. There are food safety or food danger zones, temperature danger zones, that cold foods and hot foods have to be within their acceptable parameter. So if you're getting a 55 degree cold food temperature and you've moved your thermometer around to assure that that food item certainly is 55 degrees, do not serve it. Throw it out, because at 42 degrees or above, it starts to form bacterial growth, and that's where foodborne illnesses happen. And let me tell you, when these people get a foodborne illness, they're gone, because they don't have the fight to fight a foodborne illness. So temperatures are extremely important, and bringing a cold food item up to the safe hot food temperature has to be done quickly. It can't be set on the warmer for 2 hours and get it up to 45 degrees, and then 2 hours later it's now 55 degrees. Now I think I'll put it in the oven, and it'll take another hour and a half to get it up to 110 degrees. Huge opportunity for bacterial growth. Can't do it. It's gotta be brought to hot temp quickly, and it's gotta be cooled quickly just the same. If it's brought out of the oven at 195 degrees, set on the countertop for hour and a half, now it's at 55 degrees, and guess what's happening? Bacterial growth. Throw it away. Don't put it back in the refrigerator or freezer. Throw it away. I think we've all experienced our wonderful oven and the hiccups that it has. Don't let yourself be caught off guard. I always say, if it says an hour on your recipe, 2 hours minimum. If you're bringing it out of if it's something Night Shift has prepared, a casserole or something, you're bringing it out of a 40 degree refrigerator, and you're expecting to eat that in an hour out of our oven, not gonna happen. It's gonna be about 110 degrees maybe in an hour, if you're lucky. So always allow at least double the time that you would if you're mixing the casserole from cans out of the pantry, hot meat that you've browned or whatever, and it's already probably at, just say 80, 90, 100 degrees with hot meat or whatever. It's not gonna take you 3 hours in the oven. So don't let yourself be caught off guard. Plan accordingly. Allow a lot of extra time in that oven. You can always temp it an hour ahead of mealtime and turn it down. But you can never, it's a scramble if you temp it 5 minutes before mealtime and it's cold. So I think we've all experienced it like I have. Let's see. Never handle food with gloves that have been used outside the kitchen, such as if you deliver a tray to an apartment, if you're touching resident walkers or pushing them in the dining room chairs, touching all those surfaces and then coming back to the dining room and handling food, another opportunity for bacteria. Never touch ready to serve food with ungloved hands. So I went to a food service training, and the presenters said, and I don't know if I necessarily agree with this, and I would never do it, but he says, if you're making a meatloaf, I don't care if you're kneading that meatloaf and those eggs with your bare hands for 15, 20 minutes, because I know that's going into the oven and it's gonna be brought to temp and the bacteria is gonna be killed. But if you're touching bread and butter that you're gonna serve with bare hands, that's not going to be heated with bacterial loss. That's gonna be served, and anything that's been on your hands, again, opportunity for exposure to bacteria. I'm gonna back up to food temps. So when you're checking food temps and you're getting ready to serve, don't just check the food temp in the very corner of a 9 by 13 pan of casserole, cause that very corner is likely going to be 210 degrees, and the center could potentially be 100 degrees. I mean, that's kind of extreme, but, you know, I mean, you know, if it's something that you can take your thermometer and kind of move around in the casserole versus just that one corner, or check several spots in the casserole. Same thing holds true with hot beverages, don't just dip it in and out, kind of slurry the thermometer, cold things, slurry if you can. That'll give you a more accurate temperature reading of the item as a whole, not just a corner. Serving time, please serve from the stovetop and or flat top. We've had resident complaints of cold food, and I don't like cold food myself, so I can relate. When we're serving off of the stove or the flat top next to the stove, the food is in its warmest environment possible, where it is hopefully sustaining its temperature at some level. And brought to the table one plate at a time. Do not plate a whole island full of food and deliver it after you've prepared 10 or 12 or 15, 17 plates, and now I'm gonna deliver them out one by one. Because by the time the 16th person is getting their food, guess what? It's real cold and it's disgusting. So you plate, you deliver, you plate, you deliver, you plate, you deliver.
Well, plus there's that cold air vent right above, so
Exactly.
it's cooling that off like.
And there should always be 2 people serving anyway. The
Mhm.
cook or the kitchen person plating and the med person delivering. And that should be done in connection with each other. It should be separate. Let's see. Yeah. Medication persons help you deliver, yeah, okay. Reminder, residents must be aware of all menu changes. This is a state regulation, and it would result in citations if we do not adhere to it. Do not substitute menu items unless absolutely necessary, such as if there's missing ingredients, which can happen. I'm human, I don't read every recipe when I grocery shop. Also remember to check the mechanical room for, in these winter months, it's a cooler environment to store extra bread, extra potatoes, that kind of thing.
Number 11.
So make sure you check there before you just say, oh, there were no potatoes, so I thought
Number
potato salad
11.
or something like that. Do not leave food
Number
particles
11.
on any kitchen equipment. Ugh. One of the nastiest things ever, this is our Ninja, our older style Ninja, the motor part of it, and the little wheel part of it that connects to the blade and rotates. You already saw this picture. I'm gonna pass it around and I'm gonna have you look at where the grinder piece of the blade meets the actual machine, and just look at all the food residue there. Again, that would be a citation from the state sanitation department. It would cost us a lot of money, and that's even a side note. What it would cause is a foodborne illness. Because all of that food clutter that's left on that wheel of that Ninja
Yeah.
is then transferable back to the clean blade. So all the bacteria that's harbored in this thing overnight in that dark drawer, and now when the morning cook comes and they're sticking that blade up into there, all of that could be potentially falling out of that wheel into the food, and there you have it. Simple things. So I'm gonna tell you, I should have brought the windows in here. So that motorized piece, you know, you should be wiping the exterior of it down with a hot soapy rag. And then while the food is still soft around in there, because food does get up in there, that's just a natural thing. While it's still soft before it's allowed to harden, take the whole thing to the sink and run the hottest water. It's a contained unit. Water's not going down into there if you have it upside down and you're running hot water up into that mechanism there. And if it does burn the machine out, let me tell you, I'd rather buy 16 of those Ninjas than have one foodborne illness. So do not leave food or utensils with food on. Second item I'm gonna pass around is this 9x13 pan that was clean in the cabinet this morning. Clean, clean. Again, this would cost us a lot of money if the sanitation people saw this food that was left on this 9x13 pan, because the next person can potentially use it and not notice it. Hopefully they would notice it and not use it, but huge citation for us, huge, lots of money. And again, that's just a side note, it's more the foodborne illness that I worry about.
Well, yeah, and the other day too, there was a lid that had a sticker on it. And supposedly it was down because I flipped it over to put it on top of my juices to put in the fridge, and it had a label sticker. So apparently it was never washed, it was just put away and never ever washed because the sticker was still stuck on the lid. So, and they're dissolvable in water, so it never went through the dish machine or the sink whatsoever, just put away, and it's, cause it still had the sticker on it,
Yeah.
so, yeah.
Yeah, I don't know. Let's see. Okay, do not substitute menu items, I already talked about that. Food particles. When mixing thickened orange juice for Jack, please only do half the jug. If you do the full jug, it seems like it takes a long time to use it all up, and by then it's, you know, I mean, just by mixing half the quantity, it lasts him several days, and, the whole jug gets kind of gross and gunky.
Well,
Hey,
and it shouldn't be more than a 3-day thing of it for him anyway, because technically it should be thrown away after 3 days and remade, so.
So by making
Keep it-
half a, you know, you
Yeah.
can just use a half a cup of thickener versus the full cup, and it's
Yeah.
not that hard.
Yeah.
Do not, pay it forward in everything you do. I mean, do not leave the thickened water, both jugs, with this much in them. I mean, why would you start the second jug when there's some left in the first? I know why, cause you don't wanna remix it, but come on, be courteous, and, you know, it's really frustrating to come to work and to have to mix, you know, 2 or 3 food items right away. Let's see. Controlled drug counting,
Linda, what is scary?
just a reminder, I'm gonna wait till Mary and Sandy come back. Oh, I'll skip forward. Mopping the pantry, kitchen, dining room, and entry. So this Odoban is the product we use for mopping those areas. It used to be 4 ounces of the product per gallon of water, but they changed it. And I just happened to read the label when this new shipment came in, and it is 5 ounces per gallon of water. So using our big mop bucket and our big mop heads, I prefer not to use that small, pad, because you cannot re-wet that. So, I mean, I get that you can spray it, but you're still just, in essence, moving dirty. And I get that even if you wring out the big mop, you're moving dirty water around, because once it's in there, it's dirty, but I just feel like the opportunity to rinse is minimal if you're using the pad. So in the mechanical room, I'm gonna leave 5 ounces, and this measuring cup, and per gallon, so this is a gallon, pail. So, and the state will watch you if they're here, they will watch you and make sure you are mixing it proportionally correct. So if you're putting 2 of these in, you better be using 10 ounces of this, cause they'll watch. And this has a 1-minute contact time. I will say, I think if you're using the large, mop heads, it's easily gonna stay wet for 1 minute. Unless you have fans blowing on it, which I would discourage if the state's here, because, you could potentially have less than 1 minute of contact time, or wet contact time, it has to be wet, visibly wet. Well, 2 of the key players are missing here. What are they doing?
She's just sitting on coffee.
So if we're charting on our task and we don't get charted, like, you know, you have the AM for things, but there's also some of the timed ones, and because some of them are the timed ones, if you can't get in there and it's late, do you get, you know, if state shows up and there's a lot of the late charting, like for the kitchen, especially because there's a lot of times you don't get a chance to go in and chart until later. Is that gonna make, I mean, as long as all your tasks are done, are they gonna penalize for that?
I completely understand what you're saying, cause I experienced it over the weekend too.
Cause it's hard sometimes
And there's
just to
some
get back
things
in there
that-
an hour later to chart.
Right.
And that, what, you know, like, from the morning people coming out to your late people, sometimes there's a gap in there to chart, but it depends on what you're making for your meal.
Yeah, I'll make myself a note and see if there are more things that I could move from being time specific to just shift specific, if that makes sense.
I mean, like, for, you know, it's like seating, you know, the people and those people, because, you know, you got 5 early, and then you got like 3 at 8 o'clock, and she isn't even out here until at least 8:30, so.
Or number 9,
Number 9,
yeah.
but, I mean, some of them are timed, but sometimes you can get in there, and then like after exercise, sometimes there's time to go in there and chart, but then again, there's not time, just depending on what that meal is.
Yeah, so a lot of times I do know you're sitting down at 1:30,
Yeah,
whatever, to do the remainder of your charting. And then
Yeah.
by then it is considered a late task.
Yeah.
'Cause it was 11:30, you know,
Mhm.
assist to push
Yeah.
to the table or assist
But I
to
mean-
identify
I
food
mean,
on
most
plate.
of them in the kitchen are, you know, aren't timed like your meds and that,
Mhm.
is if, you know, sometimes it's just as I'm charting and it's like, late,
Yeah.
shoot.
There it
2
went.
minutes late, and I have 2 seconds late again.
Story of my life.
But I didn't know if, you know, if that would make a big difference for state seeing that, if state
Yeah,
can
I
see
mean,
that they're late.
potentially it could, I think we would have a valid leg to stand on in saying that, you know, obviously, we're not preparing Jack's food at 2 p.m. for
Yeah.
his noon meal. I mean,
Yeah.
But they could argue that, you know,
Mhm.
potentially,
I
yeah.
think it depends on their mood.
Yeah, or the survey.
Sometimes, you know, I think.
You know, and if once
Sometimes
it
they
starts,
can be
if
real-
once we get a bigger clientele, then it's gonna be
Mhm.
even harder yet, you know, to
Yeah.
do that charting.
So, let's see, Andy, did you come in? No?
She was making coffee, I don't know, getting,
Tell her we don't need it yet.
it's 1:15, so I suppose she told Case and them to come out.
I'm just gonna keep going then. Controlled drug counting, there have been some discrepancies, I'm gonna say over the last probably week or so, it's been better. And we get notifications on our cell phones and on our, login reports when there is discrepancy in the controlled drug count. And most of the time, it's caught between the 2 people, you know, before they even leave. But in reality, it's a very, very, tightly regulated piece. By policy, if there truly is a discrepancy, nobody should leave the building. People should have urine samples submitted, for testing, because if there's a missing controlled drug, guess what? Who has the keys? It's not residents, it's not visitors, it's us. So, I mean, it's
Well,
big,
Sue,
it's big. So, again, do it slowly, make sure both the oncoming and the offgoing person are physically counting every pill in the bubble, not just assuming that when Mary says there's 52 of them, maybe Mary put 4 of them in her pocket, and now
Yeah.
Sarah's
Yeah,
gonna
Mary.
say 52 and save, and,
Sue told me to do it.
yeah, where did those other 4 tablets go, you know?
No wonder you're so happy-go-lucky. all the
Yeah,
time.
Mary, quit taking those pills.
Sue told me they'd make me happy.
Well, you
So
could share 'em.
anyway, you know, it's big, pay attention to your numbers, physically count every pill, and then that banner, you know, it's pretty subtle when you count 54 and you type in 45 because your brain
Dyslexic.
turned it around. The banner that comes up, I called them right away at our task. I said, that needs to be like a big stop sign that comes up, or a big red something that puts a hand through the computer screen and slaps it across the head or something, because it's huge, that you can't have discrepancies. And they're like, oh, you know, sorry, that's just the way the computer software was designed. I'm like, well, could you change it? Because, I mean,
Well, and we were honestly to the understanding that it wouldn't even let you go on. And she's like, oh yeah, that'll let you go on, and we're like,
yeah.
what in the
It shouldn't,
world?
it really shouldn't, but,
We were honestly so excited to get rid of the books,
yeah.
cause we were like, alright, this'll be it, you know, nothing will happen, then the next day I'm like,
Yeah.
heck, well, first of all, I entered one wrong, that was the problem from day one. When we we had a problem from day one, really. I'm like, how can we have 0 and then suddenly a PRN popped up? And that's suspicious.
Well, anyway,
Just
just
found
note
this
that
one.
it is a
But
very,
it
very
is-
high priority to make sure that is 100% accurate.
It really is, yeah.
Pay attention to that banner. A little side note about when to call the RN or when to call me. Everything, resident care related, nursing related, resident assessment related, has to, by state law, be reported to the RN. So don't call me, I mean, I'm happy to get calls, don't get me wrong, but the state statute says the RN must be notified. So Sarah or Brooklyn have to be notified.
Well, get her to answer her phone.
If for some reason,
Listen.
there is a delay, because I mean, again, I don't carry my cell phone with me 99, I mean, not 100% of the time, I just don't. And maybe I was at church and it's on silent, I forgot to turn it off. I mean, you know, there's so many factors that, or I'm in the shower, I mean, there are times when you will not be able to reach somebody immediately, and that's just the nature of the beast. If you can't reach Sarah or Brooklyn right away and there's an imminent need, call me and we'll work through it. Or if you can't get a hold of any of the 3 of us, send them out, and I will never ever, I will back you 100% if you send somebody out and the hospital deems it unnecessary. Because again, you're unlicensed personnel and your judgment is, I can't do it, I got it, you know, I mean, so you will never be condemned to send somebody out, and even if it is unnecessary, I will say that, and maybe you feel differently, but
No,
I
I
don't.
don't, I have yet to question anybody's judgment, I'm not here. And I feel like everybody kinda knows when something's not good.
Yeah, I think,
I mean, you kinda know, I mean, it's not as if it's your first rodeo, everybody's had to take care of something somewhere along the line, whether it's an animal or not, or if it's a human. You know if something's, doesn't feel right, not right, something's not, it's like, I guess something's not right, you're calling me for a reason. And if I'm not answering, then it's like, what's your next thing? Your gut is like, I got to do something,
yeah.
right? So if I'm not answering, nobody's answering, it's like, okay, well,
On the
You're
flip
leaving.
side of that, Sarah should not be called with building type of issues. The stove, I mean, building type of things, are not her deal, those should come to me. And I think when we're all trained, the front of the schedule book has that list of important numbers. If by chance you can't get a hold of me, you can call her, but she's not gonna know what to do anyway.
Imagine that.
So anyway, you can always call, like, for plumbing, you could call Sparks Plumbing. For, just overall building things, Dwayne Sparks or Doug Brinks are our, board members that, you know, they're good to respond to if they're around, but. So building things to me, nursing related things to Sarah or Brooklyn, or me as a third choice. We do ask that when you're messaging, that if it's not something that needs to be, reported immediately, it's nice to use our RTAS messaging system. There are several reasons that it's nice to have that. First of all, it provides a trail of the communication between yourself and whomever you're communicating with. Second of all, notes can get lost, and clutter on a desk can disappear, so if a note's taken, it can get accidentally pushed in the garbage, whatever. And third, if we happen to log in remotely on a weekend or whatever, which we can or don't have to do, it's our time off too, but we can choose then to address things
She's
that
gonna
are
clean the pan.
higher priority
She'll finish being in it.
at the time that we see them from home. So, if possible, use the computer for messaging. Another thing is, if a resident has a need for something like personal care items, toothpaste, I know Kim, you had messaged me about Gordy's Depends or whatever, you guys can order those things from their pharmacy, or you can call their family members too. But I'm not offended by seeing them on my
What do you
messaging
prefer we
screen.
do? Message or send a fax or whatever to the pharmacy
Yeah.
or
Yeah. Yeah.
or whatever?
Does everybody know how to enter an unscheduled service in our tasks?
I've never done it.
Because we should be capturing, whatever services we're providing. So, if you have to do 2 loads of laundry because somebody had a mess of some sort or something, we should take credit for that. So on your today's screen, you click on the plus more, and over here, any unscheduled charting, so, unscheduled PRNs, unscheduled chores, where's your unscheduled services? PRN service, yeah, that wasn't good, sorry. So you just click on this unscheduled PRN service, choose the date and time you did it, and then whatever resident you performed the task for, and then, what type of service was it? Did you, have to give them an extra bath, just whatever. And you can also add a note, incontinent showered resident, or, whatever, and then just click at the bottom, there's a save button. But everything you do that, isn't in here as a service to provide, and you actually end up doing it, please take credit for that. And it's not that we charge by the service, we're not à la carte billing, but I think if there's ever a challenge from a family that says, or we end up doing a reevaluation, their service level changes, we could have supporting documentation to show a family member if they question that, yes, we are consistently having to help him in and out of the shower. Yes, we do all of his nail care. Yes, we do 14 loads of laundry a week. Yes, whatever it may be, we should really take credit for everything we're doing. So just go into that unscheduled service and, add it, and if you have questions about it, you can ask.
The
I'd be
hard
happy to
part
help you.
about that, when I found out yesterday, you have to go and list, so somebody has a major incontinence, so if you did laundry, that's a whole thing. And then you go back, so you save that, and then you go back, and then, so you washed them up again, say you washed them up at the beginning of your shift. Now you have to chart it again, so then you have to go back. Is there a way to condense, to be able to click more than, cause it would only let me click one item
Yeah,
service.
Again,
at
they're
a
all
time.
separate services.
Yeah, so you gotta go all the way back.
So, we were sold on the system,
It is a nice system,
It
some
is
of
a
the
good
entry
system. I do
is,
like it.
But I
is
think-
redundant.
I think
It's
that was the
just-
thing, is that we didn't realize some of the stuff was redundant. I still do think it's the best out of what we saw, specific to just like assisted living. The other stuff is more like, obviously nursing home stuff, so it was just like, but the other system really didn't have, everything wouldn't connect with everything, so as like, what we would put in, it didn't like flow nicely together, so I think, anyway, but now that we get into it, it's like everything does have its own, cause I think the hard part is that there's a lot of places that do this à la carte billing, and so each time you do something, they get billed for it, which is a
Yeah.
big moneymaker for a lot of
Oh, shoot.
facilities.
Number 11.
Yeah.
Right, it's like anytime you enter that room, you're like,
Cha-ching,
Yeah.
cha-ching.
yeah, so, I mean, they put their call light on, and literally, it's like money,
It is.
yeah, so, and that's why it is the way it is, I do believe, so.
Another thing is just kind of be mindful of, acceptable parameters of vital signs. So if you should happen to get an oximetry pulse of 48, don't just take that number and take it off and go. Maybe try a different finger, maybe let it on, additional 15, 30 seconds. Switch hands, you know, don't just take the first reading and go. We do have a list of acceptable, vital sign parameters, and anything that falls out of that range, should be a recheck at minimum. And then if your recheck is consistent with your first reading, then it's reportable. But until you've, you know, tried to see if it is just a fluke, you know, it really should just be trialed more than once before you make a definite, yep, this is what it is, I'm gonna call the nurse. When
Number
entering
3.
oxygen saturations into the computer, please, there's a note section, add if it's
Number
with
3.
oxygen or room air. And it becomes important, for a lot of reasons, but for instance, when, and shorter man out here.
Number!
When Lorraine, was so ill, you know, there were times when she was starting to get better, or even times when she was very ill, that, you know, she would be without her oxygen, and we'd get an oxygen reading of 86. And then, you know, if you did do that, that's worth charting, because then you know that she's, you know, she's running low without her oxygen, but then you maybe take it a step farther and say, you know, your oxygen only is 86 and I see you don't have your oxygen on, why don't you try putting your oxygen on? I'm gonna come back in 5, 10, 20 minutes, whatever, and see what it's been since you've been using your oxygen. So, it's always nice to know if your oxygen saturation reading is with oxygen at 2 liters, or you don't have to say with oxygen at 2 liters, oxygen 2 liters, you know, just in the notes, oxygen 2 liters, or room air, done. It's not hard.
Doris's fluctuates with or without her oxygen too.
Yeah,
So if they are on, I guess, I don't chart with oxygen if they're supposed to be on oxygen all the
well,
time.
Doris is supposed to be on oxygen.
Right,
all
so
the
if
time.
she's not on oxygen, then I chart room air. If she's not on it, and that's, if I get a decent reading, I just put room air. So you want us to chart something else? Sorry, I just came in.
Yeah, I mean, I guess as, and I know you're not a nurse or whatever, but when we were taught, you always, it's never a question, you always enter room air or oxygen. Doesn't matter if the person is continuous
Okay.
oxygen, doesn't matter if the person never has an oxygen order. We were taught you always add that to your reading.
Okay,
What do you think?
Right, and it may sound dumb, and it may sound dumb, but when you print off the vitals, everybody always will say, Cal, was that room air? It's the first question everyone will ask, like the provider.
And if you ask me next month about, what Bernice's reading, was it room air or oxygen, I'm gonna know that. But if you ask me in 2 years and Bernice went oxygen dependent a year ago, am I gonna remember that
Yeah,
13 months ago, that was room air? No, I'm not.
right, it's a
So-
funny thing, cause we know she's room air, you know, we know it, but as soon as we print it and we send it, they're like, was she on room air? Like, duh, yes, it's room air, you know what I mean?
We know that, not everybody.
Right,
I mean,
it's the first thing everybody asks, you know what I mean? So, you know, it's interesting, but, you know, it's like.
You want us to do that with everybody though, then?
I think it, just to make it a habit, and it's done, then it's never, when am I supposed to, when am I not supposed to? It's just a habit, so on every system screen, everything, it's just an automatic room air or 2 liters of oxygen, or you know, oxygen 2, or whatever, however you want to, it doesn't really matter how you know, write it, I mean,
And
as
so
long
is
as.
that, cause it won't accept it in with the that's in the comments.
In the notes, yeah.
In the notes,
Yeah,
okay.
yeah, you know what I mean, and you don't have to put nasal cannula, or, you know, obviously, cause we already know it's a nasal cannula, nobody's here on a mask. And you know, if you ever wanna put John, you know, if he's on his trilogy, you can just put trilogy, you know, because that's a whole different ballgame of whatever. I mean, we obviously know he's getting oxygen piped in, but it's also a whole different ballgame of
Okay,
stuff, so if he's on his trilogy, in the notes, just put trilogy, cause he's getting forced
Mm-hmm.
air, you know, if you're checking and he's on it, or if he's on room air, just put room air. 'Cause like I said, it's, everybody wants to know, it's like, well, duh, I would've put, and then it's like, would you have, I'm like, I don't know.
So that's kind of all I have. Last, we're just gonna kind of touch on COVID, and since it's been a while, Tara's gonna do some demo on, proper PPE donning and doffing. A couple more COVID, things is I'm gonna laminate a sheet that when visitors come to our building, while we are in outbreak, I think it's only courteous that we let them know, so I'll kind of give you a little cheat sheet of what to say to them, when they arrive. And we cannot restrict visitation, just know that. But there will be some suggestions and, you know, we'll just kind of state it on this laminated sheet that, you know, for the safety of yourself and everyone, we are suggesting that you keep your face covering on throughout the visit, and the resident wear a face covering as well. And we are suggesting that you maintain 6 feet of distance, that social distancing be adhered to during this time of outbreak. There has been an email sent, to, a family member for every resident, and
Yeah, no, that was Diane Borsted.
they can choose to, circulate it amongst their loved ones, to let them know, but there is no way that one person for every family member is gonna alert every potential visitor in our building. It's not gonna happen. So there's gonna be a lot of people that are gonna come to our building and say, I'm here to visit so-and-so, and you say, yep, that's fine, we are allowing visitation, but we are, providing a courtesy message that, we do have COVID positivity in our building, and this whole little jargon that you can kind of go through to tell them that they are free to visit, but it's risky. So, we'll have that ready for you. And kind of new, well, I shouldn't say it's new. We didn't do it before when we had COVID positivity, but we are going to start it now with every resident, and hopefully that's the only one. We're gonna have a little log, it's called a PPE breach, and it's gonna be outside the room in some form, I haven't quite determined how, but, and it's just a checklist that, while you, at the end of your shift, maybe we shouldn't keep it there, we should keep it in the COVID room, cause it's really at the end of your shift.
It's really, but when you leave, just, you have to sign stating that during your shift, if you were in and out of that room, maybe we should keep it, you know, at the, desk here or even the COVID room, it just has to be signed stating that, you know, to your knowledge, you did not have a breach in your PPE.
You had your, goggles on, your,
You don't wear
well, no, face mask, your.
I'll just take it from here.
Yeah, do,
Anyway, like you had, everything was available to you, so you had your gown, your gloves, your N95, the, shield, everything was available. And to your knowledge, you didn't have a breach. So in the room, you know, you took everything off, there wasn't a rip in the glove or the gown. So if you were in there and all of a sudden you're like, oh shoot, there is a hole in, then we would know there was a breach. And then we do still sign, yes, there was a breach. And then again, you would be on the heavier watch list for a potential, high risk person. that would be probably contaminated type of a, you know what I mean? So we're just wanting to make sure that, yes, you agree that you are taking responsibility for the fact that you are owning your own PPE donning and doffing as well. So again, the importance of donning and doffing, going slow. I get that the light's on. We always can open the door and I'm coming, you know what I mean? Let them know that yes, your light is on and I'm coming. It's important to just make sure that you are properly doing everything. So. Questions on that part? So where is it gonna be is a good question, just so everybody signs it. You know, like when we had, over in Fulda, we had a special room. So when they exchanged, everybody, you know, you signed before you left, when you were done. Yes, you know, I did my PPE, I did it fine, when you're done. So I think,
To me, it makes sense to have it in the COVID room,
like
when you're,
sign,
cause everybody has to go there to exit.
Sure.
So at the end of your shift, that there will be a special table with the clipboard that you sign and date and acknowledge that.
and pretty much, cause everybody's, you know, like, everybody's going to have to eventually enter, or, you know, do that room at some point. I like to try to enter the room as much during the day and sometime into the evening if I can be here, so that you guys don't have to be in there that much, you know? To try to keep you clean. So, I mean, I probably will be signing it quite a bit, but I would like to try to keep everybody out of the room as you know, as much as possible. It's obviously not ideal to be here all day, all night, but I would like to try to be here, you know, and do as much of the work myself, just to keep, again, you passing meds to the rest, and you and the kid, you know what I mean? Again, you trying to stay on the cart and keep clean and dirty, you know what I mean?
Less possible exposure to the
Correct.
other residents.
The other residents, yeah. So, that is the idea, but it doesn't always, you know, we come up on the weekend, we may not be here for testing Saturday. Or whatever, so I mean, we try the best that we can, it's hard, but. And trying to group meds too, I guess, you know, these,
We can
Yeah,
look at
that's
this,
what I
yes.
was gonna ask you too, if you're gonna try to combine the stuff so you
so I
can.
And
nearly
some things
choked
he's on
him about
3
that
times a
medication
day.
at 1:30. I'm like, that's been taken away, and then I'm like, he's like, what?
No way.
I know, and I'm like, never mind, that's the wrong one. He's like, I'm like, sorry. Oh, Dad, I think I did take that, I'm losing my mind, John. It's really sweaty in here.
Evidently.
I'm like, I took Dad after cart yesterday, you're fine. It's already down anyway. Kinda feel bad.
So yeah, we'll be testing, residents every 3 days for 14 days unless there's new positivity. Then it extends it 14 days, but hopefully there isn't. And then, staff, will be amped up too, and we'll send out notifications about that staff testing. And even though you are vaccinated, we all know that there's still the vaccinated positivity, or you're not, did I say you all, or no? Even though the vaccinated folks, you know, have, you know, a little more protection, that you still can be positive. Pay attention to your own symptoms, test. If you're not trained in testing, you know, we'll test you. We'd rather catch and eliminate than to have people here spreading stuff around, so.
Yeah, so basically what they told us when we contacted them is that, that we were to, perform testing for all residents and staff on the affected units. Okay. And then basically regarding any, the vaccination status immediately, but no earlier than 2 days of exposure. And then, since we're doing the point of care testing, we have to test every 3 days. If we were doing like Mayo testing, we could do every 3, 5, 7 days depending. But point of care testing is a little bit different, so we have to do it every 3 days. So anybody that was, actually affected by the first, encounter, which would have been Sunday, staff-wise, those people have to be tested for sure every 3 days. And then the residents who she was had in the encounter with, which would be everybody, have to be, tested. So,
So then do I have to come in this weekend to get tested?
Feel the love, feel the love.
yeah, we'll give you a skid.
We would, you know, you are trained in your own testing, and we would send home, but we don't have, you know, the trouble is, we get a box of 40 kits and 1 vial of reagent,
Right.
to go with it, so
And-
there's no way we can send a bottle with, you know,
Yeah, that's the hard part with these particular ones, is that you have to have that, 6 drops. Well, how are we gonna send 6 drops with you?
Just send us with the whole kit.
Did you not just listen?
Well, no, when Biden was doing his State of the Union address, he was saying that they were having, like, out where you could get out the home kits.
So, they did talk about that in one of the meetings, or one of the MDH calls, that we could accept a home, what they said was a home positive test. Now, they never really said anything much about, like, just screening, since we had in an outbreak. They didn't talk much about that. They just said, like, if you were home and you were ill and you tested, they just said accept the home positive test and consider it to be, don't make them come in and test, is basically what they said. And basically it's because everybody's having a hard time getting test kits, getting tests, getting blah, blah, blah. So they basically said it was fine to accept a home positive test, is what we were told. Now, as far as when we're in an outbreak, we have not heard that it's okay to allow that.
you know, the trouble is,
We
with a
didn't-
home negative, you can ask, you know, is the person competency trained to accurately perform the procedure? And then was the was it carried out by, you know, so a home negative, a home positive is a positive, I mean, if you get a positive, you're positive, but a negative, it could be an error in procedure, really, so that's why they say accept a positive, but
Right,
question a negative.
right, I think because we're in outbreak, I would rather, unfortunately, it sucks, I get it, I mean, I'm gonna have to come in and test too, just because I'm going to, but, I think it's best just for us to do it, it sucks, I get it, but, and you can come in anytime, if there's not a time specific, I don't want you coming in like a little before midnight.
I'm not gonna be out drinking that late.
But I mean, it's just important, I think, to protect them, we just don't want it to be spread any more than it potentially could, so,
So I don't have anything else other than the demo, so.
yeah.
Fire it up and.
Yes, and I think that was it on there, I just, if you do feel, if you have symptoms and you are vaccinated, we can do your testing here. Again, you can test at home, if you're vaccinated and you have symptoms, we can take your positivity from home. And I think that was it. So, what was that? Go over I'm just gonna get myself easy. So this is what is gonna obviously be outside of, room number 1 here. This is his table. So does everybody remember how we do this, or not so much? Anyone? Okay.
And the step-by-step will be posted on.
So the step-by-step of how to put it on is on the outside, and then how to take it off is on the inside. So remembering when, I'll kinda go over right now. So, we'll do our gown first here. And there's yellow and blue ones in the drawer. I like the yellow ones better because I can poke my hole through to try to keep my gloves.
Get out of them easier too.
Huh?
And get out of them easier too.
And you don't kill yourself.
They're not
Now,
as hot.
do we
ones
use our
are
own
like-
N95 masks, or
stuck
we
in that.
using just one do you have ones in the drawer there?
There's the ones in the drawer, so
Okay.
whatever you were fit tested for, if you can recall, that is what you're going to need. There should be the 2 different kinds, so it's this one and then the white one. I think there's only 2 people. You are fit tested for the white. I think Linda was fit tested for the white.
I didn't have the white.
Julie, okay, you look
Julie.
small. So. This is what taped and hours. If you have a friend that could tie you, that'd be great.
You don't have any,
And
you
we
just
have
struggle with
friends.
that.
For some reason, never get it right. Anyway, on to the next. Tie yourself up.
You should make them long enough where you can bring it to the front.
That's what I do.
Yeah,
Well, not
you're-
everybody's
Listen,
as skinny as you.
You and Emma.
Yeah, it's like that. So
You want some
anyway,
help with that?
no. Anyway, it's tied. So you always wanna make sure it's tied. You don't want any loose stuff, like when we do testing sometimes, it's loose. You don't wanna be loose, okay? You don't want it flopping around when you're in your room, cause you will be, they will say something to me. They will come find me. So, take your goggles off. This one comes off. Now, you can do this one of 2 ways. You can choose to save this mask, or you can throw it. So if you leave it outside and you put it on your little thing, it's fine. You can reuse it, or you can throw it if you don't want to reuse it. Depending on how many times you're going in and out, you know, whatever. I save it. It's whatever. So but the idea is because we're not like extremely short on N95s, but we're not like extremely heavy on the N95s either. The amount of time that you're gonna spend in that room isn't really worth throwing every single time, because we don't have an abundance of the N95s and the way to get our hands on a huge supply of N95s either. So we're actually gonna save them through your entire shift, versus storing them each time. So we are going to don and doff them through the little old container. So I have to take my glasses off because I can never get it, because I can't see, and then now I can't get it on and off. So the very first time, I'll try and do it without. So you're just gonna get your N95. So it's in the top drawer of your, so when you first get it, you can do whatever you want with it, right? Because nobody cares, you haven't had it on yet. So after that, the idea is to try to not touch the green. If you do, you have to hand sanitize, which, whatever. Okay, so then you wanna put it on your face first, and then I usually just grab both and just up and over. And then just let them go. It doesn't matter where they are in the back. Find your comfort, put it on, whatever you wanna do. Whatever's most comfortable and it stays on. If they're over each other, fine. If you like one up, one down, fine. If you want them both up, both down, whatever it is, just keep it on, okay? Pinch your nose, get it secure. Make sure you have no leaks. Find it. Right? Okay. The other big test is if you fog your glasses up, you got a leak, okay? If you wear
Well,
glasses.
breathe.
I am trying to breathe, okay? Then comes the old shield. Goes on next. Okay? And then this is your globes. And these, always, this is why you wanna put your thumb hole in, because it has to go over your cuff. That's why I don't like the blue ones, because I have a very hard time making sure, you know, you probably wanna try to hang on to it if you have your blue ones. And then, you know, get your glove in there like that, because you want it inside there. They will watch, if they're here, they will watch and make sure that your cuff, that you have no way to contaminate by your wrists. They wanna make sure that none of you is showing when you're in there. So now you're ready to go in, okay? Do whatever you need to do, sweat like a pig. And they can't hear, he cannot hear you,
Pigs don't sweat.
but he is trying to read. If you're yelling, there's a good time in there. And then do as much as you can while you're in there. So I asked him if he, you know, wanted me to read a book or something to him, and you know, he didn't want that. But as much as you can, so you wanna get as much as you can done in there. All of his food and stuff is gonna go in styrofoam. I told him for some odd reason he can't eat with styrofoam or whatever. He'll let us know, you always wanna offer that too. Because the state will also ask you about that in case you are like, I don't wanna say discriminating, but it's good to offer styrofoam But if for some reason, say they can't drink out of a styrofoam cup, but you never offered them an alternative. So for example, he's in there, he's spilling his coffee all over because that cup just isn't stable enough. For example, say Ronnie can't hold it, but we didn't offer him anything else, right? So usually, that first meal for sure, somebody like myself, I should probably just go in there, make sure, can you hold it, is everything good, or do you need a handle? So sometimes we do need to give them regular stuff, it's gonna suck, we'll have to figure out what we're gonna do, but sometimes they do have to have it, because of the way they hold or whatever. Maybe we don't have any problem here, but it's just, anyway. So just so you know, we do have to make sure that they can eat and do all that stuff that they're supposed to with the, whatever we give them. Any questions about putting this on?
No.
Okay, now does everybody remember how you take it off?
No.
Nobody?
Gloves.
Thank you. Okay, you can do it one of two ways. So you can take gloves off first. There is the other way of everything, the gown and gloves at the same time, right? So,
Question, sorry. Are we not gonna wear one of these on top of the N95 in the apartment since we're wearing that mask all day like we did before, or not?
so as of right now, he's our only one.
Yep.
So we
Not
don't
going
have to
in and out.
because he's our only one.
Okay.
So if we had more than one, yes,
Okay.
you would need to cover it because you're going into multiple different rooms. So when you have more than one, because you have no idea what they have and he has and we're going to be going into different rooms, you're gonna wanna cover it with another mask. But since he's my only one, and I wanna be able to breathe a little bit, then we don't technically have to, because I'm only going in there, I'm coming out, and I'm literally saving it just for him.
Okay.
So,
Makes
but if
sense.
we ever had more than one, then yes,
Then your surgical is disposable at
Right.
each exit.
correct, then I
It's
have to
not
throw away my
optional to
surgical,
save.
yep, yep. So if we have more than one that we're going into, then we always, then cover the N95, if we're saving it through the whole shift, yeah. Okay, so gloves come off, now, when I was over in Foldow, they always told us this was the best way to remove the gloves. And not everything at one time, why, I don't know, but they do teach it both ways, where you can remove, okay, so I'm gonna remove my gloves first, okay. The other way you can do it is to untie, or just pull, and pretend like I still have my gloves on, and then take gloves off and roll inside. That make sense?
Mm-hmm.
So you can do both, either way, okay? If you're more comfortable keeping your gloves on, you still have your gloves on, pull, gloves on, pull, roll them inside, okay? When I was over in Fulda, for some reason the state wanted gloves off first, but they do teach it both ways still. Okay, so these stay in the room, in the garbage, right?
Mhm.
So am I allowed to leave the room now?
Oh, yeah,
Right?
Yes.
with the shield.
I'm-
That
I'm-
comes up out in the hall.
I'm still good, right? So, it's gonna be on that sign, I would just double check. It's okay if you have to sit, to wait and read. Even if they're there with you, the lady is sitting, take your time, it's okay. She's like, you can, anyway, it's okay, yep, go out and leave, okay. So out here, and I did bring another pair of gloves, but whatever, so put your gloves back on, yeah, actually,
Hand sanitize.
thank you, sanitize. Then try to get your gloves back on.
That 2X on the outside.
You're gonna want 5X pair. So then, you can now take this off, right?
Mhm.
Okay, that's nice. Okay. Then you can clean this bad boy, and I would just leave this sucker on until you're ready to be done. So, for this, can't breathe. So for cleaning for this, because they're gonna watch you very hard on how you clean this thing. And this is what I'm gonna tell you to do. You're just gonna do this. And then this. Okay. You're not gonna be able to see it.
I was gonna say, oh, you
But
just see.
you're guaranteed this bugger is gonna be wet for how long?
15 seconds.
Right. It's gonna stay wet for 15 seconds, right? Visibly wet for 15 seconds. Even if I put this sucker down, it's gonna be wet for 15 seconds. So I virtually, so if, for example, if I had a another paper towel, I can put that down, I know it's gonna stay wet for 15 seconds, right? I don't have to worry that it's not gonna stay wet for 15 seconds. They will ask you, what is your contact wet time? Visibly wet for 15, I know it's gonna be wet for 15 seconds, right? Also, what we have to try to remember to do, and I didn't do it, was, try to, if you can, try to wipe this out at least once a time on your shift. What this does is just, you don't wanna use, well, you can, whatever. Just wipe it out. You should really use a new one. You just wanna clean it, cause you're using, it just needs to be cleaned once a shift. What I try to usually remember to do is as soon as I put mine on, I try to clean it out so it's drying as I'm in the room. Okay?
So for disposing of whatever shift though, anyway, you could just clean it at the end of your shift once empty.
You could, yeah, absolutely, yeah. Just
Like
try to clean it
for
at some point.
Multi-use.
Right, right. So if I'm wearing it for 5 wears, I wanna at least clean it one time during my shift, at some point, and I try to do it when I go into the room at some point, so that I know it's so it can dry as I'm going in. Now to take this bugger off, you just shove your face in and then over and over. And I just grab them again. So I don't care which one I'm grabbing, I just grab both. So I try to grab them from,
Better take your glasses off.
oh yeah, it's a good idea again. See, there's always someone listening. And I take my glasses off because again, I'm gonna, actually, I grab the bottom one on this one, on my way out. Cause I wanna secure it, and then I wanna hang on to it. It's a good time. And what you're gonna do is blind yourself. It works real well. So on here, you can touch just minimal to try to get it back in there. And the idea is just to try to not touch the green. If you touch it, it is what it is.
You're saying it.
Right, you just want it to hang in there. Now, is this everybody's going to hang perfectly in there? No, they don't always, they just don't. But the idea is just to be able to keep it for your shift, the best that you can. A lot of times these will come up. The idea is to basically try to keep it suspended. So if these come up, the idea is try to just keep it suspended for the shift so it doesn't come down. Now if it comes down, again, I'm hoping that I have cleaned it. Now I haven't necessarily touched it, so it's been in this environment, not my hands and, different places. So we're still secure, we're still good, and I'm still gonna get rid of it at the end of the shift. Now if I feel like this has been compromised and I feel like I can't wear it, you can't wear it. We can't save it, then we just don't save it. You know what I mean? So the idea is just to try to save, on supplies if we can.
Can I ask, what was that little piece that they stuck into those masks when we tried them on?
So that was to,
Check your air.
check, to see the security of so they were blowing and trying to see, how the mask fit.
Oh, that doesn't have to stay on there though.
No.
Okay.
Well,
If you still have that, throw that thing away.
you can throw that away.
That's been around for.
They said you could use that if you put tape on it. Now the trust
Oh.
in that, and if state was here, they always say you can, but I keep thinking to myself, right, you know what I mean?
They're just trying to get us in trouble.
I think so, cause they said you could put a mask on top of it. Well, I don't know, I think that probably could poke right through and we'd have some trouble, you know what I mean? So
I
probably
said
just
put a
throw it.
piece of duct tape over it.
Yeah, that's what they said, but I just don't know about that. So once you clean that, then I usually throw away my gloves. What do you always do after you have gloves? Hand sanitize. Get your regular mask on as soon as you can. Get your goggles back on as soon as you can, because you can't run into anybody in the hall, and then you're done. After several hours of sweating. And that's about it. So any questions on that? It really goes a lot smoother. It's actually pretty easy when you think about it.
It's just, it's just time and.
It's the time, and then just to
Yeah.
really slow down and think. Try not to be in any hurry. try. Sometimes it's hard, I know. And again, just try to do as much as you can when you're in there, if you have to go in. So. And then don't be afraid to ask questions, or if you can't remember, read. Just read the signs.
All right. That's a wrap.
Sure was.
So we'll get the PPE breach in the COVID room, that log, and we'll make the sign for some cues to visitors.
Can you put one by the phone in the kitchen?
Mhm. Yep. I could put one at this phone too, in case anybody calls, by both
That's a
phones and
good
then
idea.
at the door. Most people don't call ahead anymore, but just in case.
Susan does.
Hmm?
Susan does.
Talking, yeah.
Well, now that you sent out the emails or whatever, they may call and
That's true.
ask before they come too.
Oh, Lord, I'm getting ready to rise and shine there. All right, well, thank you, everybody.
You're
And
lazy dog.
questions are always welcome. Suggestions are always welcome.
Yes.
Our tasks, questions and suggestions, always welcome.
And I love the clinic referrals on there.
Yeah,
That has made it so fast and
Yeah.
easy.
there are a lot of benefits, a few struggles, but I think,
Yeah.
personally, I feel like the benefits far outweigh the
Yeah,
struggles.
overall, I think. it
Grandma's
is.
up moving. I can be too.
Nap is done.
We missed out on that. All right. Shut the movie off and call it a day.